Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. The screen flickered like it was breathing. A cheap slasher from 1987 played beneath the October sky, its grainy screams echoing across the cracked parking lot of Moonlight Drive-In. Rows of half-empty cars glowed in the projector's stuttering light. Somewhere, a generator coughed and sighed. In the very back row, a cherry-red convertible idled beside the tree line, the kind of spot couples chose when they didn't care about the movie. Darren leaned across the seat toward Maya, grinning. "Hey, you ever hear that dumb story about saying creepy 3 times? She frowned, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Don't start with that. It's almost Halloween." "That's the point," he laughed. "Come on, it's just a thing people made up. Ready? Creepy, creepy, creep." "Don't." Her voice cut through the night like a thin blade. Darren chuckled, kissed her forehead, and climbed out of the car. "Relax, I'll grab popcorn before you hex me or something." The door clicked shut. Maya watched him walk toward the glowing concession stand at the far end of the lot, his figure shrinking with every step until he vanished into the wash of neon. She exhaled. The movie's killer was chasing someone through a forest now. Heavy breathing, snapping twigs, distant screams. The sound bled through the old metal speaker hooked to her window. Then, another sound. From the woods behind the car, soft, wet breathing, slow, deliberate. She froze, turning the knob to lower the movie's volume. The air seemed to hum, leaves whispered, something moved. "Maya?" she called out, half laughing, trying to convince herself Darren was messing with her. "Not funny." A branch snapped. Then silence. She sank lower in her seat, heart hammering. Her eyes darted toward the rearview mirror. Just the trees, just shadows. Thunk. The car jolted, a deep vibration under the tires, as if something massive had stepped down behind it. The popcorn stand lights in the distance flickered. Maya's breath hitched. The mirror tilted, catching a glimpse of movement between the trees. Too tall, too fast, too wrong. Her throat tightened. "Darren?" she whispered. Hot air brushed her neck. She turned. A face loomed inches away, skin stretched too thin, mouth split from ear to ear, rows of teeth gleaming beneath hollow eyes that glowed like open wounds. The scream tore from her lungs at the exact same moment the movie's heroine shrieked on screen. No one heard her. Blood sprayed across the convertible's dash. The creature's hand, impossibly long, spider-thin, lifted her like a doll, and in one wet crunch, she was gone. The car door hung open. The movie played on. When Darren returned with popcorn, he found only the wind and a half-empty soda cup still trembling in the holder. A dark trail stained the seat. And somewhere, far off in the woods, a voice whispered,
"Creepy, creepy, creepy."
The hum of cheap fluorescent lights filled the Terror Hollow Chronicle office, a sound as persistent and irritating as the coffee machine that hadn't stopped groaning since 7 a.m. Stacks of half-edited papers littered every desk, corners curling under the weight of too many deadlines and too little news. Halloween was 2 weeks away, and the biggest story so far was a missing scarecrow from a pumpkin patch outside town. "Breaking news," Patch muttered, leaning back in his chair. The Hollow's Harvest mascot has vanished. Locals suspect strong winds and crippling boredom. Put that in your conspiracy column, Laura said without looking up, her glasses sliding down her nose as she typed. Call it the case of the cornfield phantom. Patch grinned. Already did. Added a UFO for flavor. Ruby sat at the desk across from them, twirling a pencil and watching the newsroom's ancient ceiling fans struggle against the humid October air. Her monitor flickered. Everything in this building flickered, but she barely noticed. Hey, Mitch, she called. Anything from the police blotter? The older reporter looked up from his desk, a graveyard of coffee cups and notebooks. Same as always, he said. Petty theft, noise complaints, and one guy who swears he saw a shadow crawl across his backyard fence. Crawl? Patch repeated. Like on all fours? Like a bad dream, Mitch said, sipping his coffee. Deputy said he was drunk, but the man's house backs right up to those woods behind Moonlight Drive-In. Ruby's pencil froze mid-spin. Laura stopped typing. That's the place that's been closed all year, right? They only opened last weekend for that horror double feature. Patch whistled. You think our shadow-loving friend saw something real? Mitch shrugged. I think this town's been quiet too long. People start inventing monsters when life gets dull. Ruby gave a soft laugh, trying to shake the unease settling in her stomach. Yeah, or they just say creepy one too many times. Patch shuddered dramatically. I've heard that one since I was 10. My cousin swore she saw his shadow under a streetlight after Halloween once. Urban legend, Laura said. Invented by teenagers in the 80s to freak out their dates. Still, Ruby said, eyes flicking toward the front window. The late afternoon light bled gold across the parking lot. Every town's got a story. Ours just happens to have a monster with bad posture. They all laughed, the kind of easy laughter that made the newsroom feel like home. For a moment, it almost drowned out the sound of the phone ringing at the far desk. Ruby reached for it. Terror Hollow Chronicle, this is Ruby. A voice on the other end trembled. It was a police dispatcher. There's been another one, the voice said. Out by the drive-in, they found a car, blood everywhere. No sign of the girl. Ruby's smile faded. The room went still, except for the ceiling fan's lazy rotation. What about the guy? She asked quietly. They found him in shock, the dispatcher said. Keeps repeating something, says she. She shouldn't have said it 3 times. Click. Ruby lowered the phone slowly, eyes wide. Laura leaned forward. What is it? Ruby swallowed hard, voice barely above a whisper. He said, she said, creepy. The silence after Ruby hung up the phone felt thick enough to touch. The hum of the lights, the fan, the printer, they all kept going, but nobody moved. Patch was the first to break it. Please tell me this isn't one of those someone disappeared in the middle of a date stories again. I can't handle another lecture about responsible journalism from the sheriff. Laura swiveled her chair around, raising an eyebrow. It's either that or we write about the missing scarecrow again. Maybe it's the same culprit, Patch said. The scarecrow bandit. He steals hay and women. Even Mitch laughed at that one, a short, rough sound that died too fast. Ruby forced a smile. You're all ridiculous. But her hands were trembling slightly on the keyboard. The fluorescent light above her desk flickered twice, then steadied. "All right," Mitch said, standing and grabbing his jacket. "Let's go before they shut down the scene." "Wait, really?" Patch blinked. "You want to go there?" "You wanted excitement," Mitch said. "Congratulations, we just got it." Laura groaned and grabbed her notepad. "If this turns out to be another Halloween prank, I'm quitting and joining the library." "Dibs on your desk," Patch said. Ruby rose slowly, her eyes drifting toward the newsroom window. Outside, the sun was almost gone, the sky a bruised orange sinking into black. She thought of that shaky voice on the phone. She said it 3 times. Her stomach knotted. She forced herself to laugh, just to hear something normal. "All right, gang. Field trip to the drive-in. Let's make the front page for once." Patch saluted with his empty coffee mug. "To the dumbest decision of the week." "Only the week?" Laura said dryly. "Give it time," Mitch muttered. They left together, the newsroom falling quiet behind them, empty desks glowing in the pale hum of office light. As the door shut, the computer monitor on Ruby's desk flickered. For a fraction of a second, her reflection looked like it was smiling wider than it should have been. Then the screen went dark. The drive to the old Moonlight Drive-In was quiet at first, except for the hum of tires on cracked asphalt and the occasional squeak of the windshield wipers brushing away drizzle. Patch tried to break the tension. "You ever think we're the idiots in the horror movie who walk straight into the murder scene?" Laura shot him a look. "Walk? We're driving. Genius." "Yeah, into Act 2, Ruby muttered, eyes on the misty road ahead. Mitch gave a low chuckle from the passenger seat. "Just keep going. The sooner we get what we need, the sooner we're back under fluorescent lights and burnt coffee." They turned down the gravel lane that led to the drive-in. The radio chatter from police cruisers came faintly through the night. Static, clipped words, the sound of someone breathing too close to their mic. Then they saw it. Red and blue lights pulsing across the empty field. The massive white movie screen stood ghostly in the distance, streaked with rain, the words, "Tonight only, Night of the Living Dead," still faintly visible through the fog. As Ruby parked, the air hit them, cold, metallic, wrong, the kind of wrong that makes your stomach turn before your brain can catch up. "Holy hell," Patch whispered. The car sat alone near the back row, angled slightly toward the woods. Its convertible top was half open, the windshield splattered with something dark. The driver's door hung ajar, still swinging lightly in the breeze. A thin strip of yellow tape fluttered in the wind, flapping like it wanted to escape. Officers moved slowly, quietly. Nobody raised their voice. Ruby stepped out first, notebook in hand. Her breath fogged instantly. The ground felt soft beneath her shoes. One of the deputies glanced up. "Press?" "Chronicle," she said. "Ruby Anders. This is Laura, Mitch, Patch. We're just observing." He looked like he wanted to tell them to leave, but exhaustion won. "Stay back from the car." Laura crouched near a patch of gravel that glistened oddly in the light. Her pen trembled as she wrote, "Is that blood?" So much of it had pooled between the stones, mixing with rainwater. Mitch circled wide, voice low. "Where's the girl?" The deputy shook his head. "Gone. No prints, no struggle, except the car door." Ruby's eyes moved up slowly to the car's rearview mirror. A Polaroid was tucked behind it. She stepped closer, ignoring the deputy's warning. The photo was old-looking, faded at the edges, but clear enough. A wide grin, pale skin, white eyes, teeth stretching far too wide to be human. Someone had written on the bottom in shaky black ink, "Creepy was here." Her breath hitched. The camera flashes from nearby police seemed to strobe the photo, making the grin flicker like it was moving. Patch took a step back. That's a joke, right? Someone planted that. Maybe, Ruby said softly, but somebody bled for it. From the tree line, a branch cracked. Everyone froze. Laura turned her flashlight toward the sound. Nothing but fog. But for just a second, so quick it almost felt imagined, the fog seemed to pull back between the trees like something large was breathing. Mitch's jaw tightened. Let's wrap it up. Whatever's out there doesn't want us here. Ruby didn't move. Her eyes stayed on the woods where the darkness seemed thicker now, heavier. Patch whispered, "We should go." The deputy called over his shoulder. "They're packing up the evidence. Let's move." But Ruby stayed just a second longer. The Polaroid slipped from the mirror and fell at her feet. The words on it seemed darker now, wet, and beneath them, faint but visible under the camera flash, a new line appeared. "See you soon, Ruby." The drive home was quieter than before. No music, no chatter, just the sound of rain whispering against the windows and the low rumble of the tires on wet asphalt. Patch stared out the window, one finger nervously tapping his knee. "You know," he said after a while, "I don't think I've ever seen that much blood in real life. My brain keeps trying to file it under movie special effects." Laura, riding shotgun now, said nothing. Her reflection in the side mirror looked pale and far away. Ruby drove, eyes fixed straight ahead. The wipers squeaked every few seconds, smearing rather than clearing the glass. Her hands were tight on the steering wheel. She hadn't told the others about the second line on the Polaroid. Mitch's voice came low, steady. "You all right, Ruby?" "Yeah," she said too quickly. "Just processing." "Don't," Mitch said. "Processing is how this kind of thing sticks in your head." Patch gave a humorless laugh. "Well, too late for that. I'll be dreaming about that stupid photo. Creepy was here. Who writes that?" Ruby didn't answer. She could still feel it in her hands, the slick plastic of the Polaroid, the faint warmth like someone had held it just before her. A light drizzle fogged the windshield again. For a moment the wipers cleared it, and in that brief instant of clarity, Ruby swore she saw something crouched at the edge of the road. Long, thin grinning. Then the blur of rain swallowed it again. Laura turned. "Did you—" Ruby shook her head quickly. Puddle reflection, nothing. But her voice cracked. The rest of the drive stayed silent. When they finally reached the Chronicle office, the parking lot was empty and silver under the streetlights. The neon sign in the window buzzed faintly. Ruby killed the engine, and nobody moved to get out. Finally, Mitch said, "We look at the photo, we write what we can, and we go home. That's it." Ruby nodded, but she already knew sleep wasn't coming. Something about the way that grin looked under flashbulb light, it felt alive. And deep in her coat pocket, the Polaroid was warm again. The newsroom at night didn't feel like the same place. By day, it buzzed with typewriters, printers, sarcasm, and burnt coffee. By night, it sounded like breathing. The air was too still, too heavy. Even the ceiling fan spun slower, groaning every few rotations like it didn't want to be there. Ruby flicked on the desk lamps one by one, casting pools of pale light over half-empty mugs and stacks of papers. The others trailed behind her, exhausted, damp, silent. "All right," Mitch said, rubbing his face. "Let's look at it and call it a night." Ruby pulled the Polaroid from her pocket. The ink had smudged slightly from the rain, but that grin was still sharp and wet-looking, the teeth reflecting light that wasn't there. Patch swallowed hard. "Tell me that doesn't look different." Laura frowned. "Different how?" "I don't know," he said, stepping closer. "Didn't his eyes look wider before?" Ruby laid the photo flat under the desk lamp. "You're just spooked?" But her stomach twisted. The longer she stared, the more the image shifted. Not dramatically, just enough that her brain whispered, "That wasn't like that before." Laura pulled a small magnifier from her bag. "Look here. Behind him, is that a tree line or dash dash?" "Hands," Patch said softly. "Those are fingers." Mitch leaned in. "This has to be a composite, some local prankster. We'll run it through editing software tomorrow." "Yeah," Ruby said. "Tomorrow." The power flickered once, twice. The computers hummed, then went black. Only the lamps stayed on. "Storm?" Laura said. "Didn't look that bad outside." Patch tried his phone. No service. Then, in the dim yellow light, the Polaroid twitched, just the edges at first, curling slightly like heat was touching it. "Ruby," Mitch said carefully. "Step back." She didn't. She couldn't. Because the grin was bigger now. And she could see her own reflection in the eyes just for a split second before the photo's surface rippled like water. The room went cold. The photo fell face down on the table. On the back, someone had scrawled something new, still wet enough to smear when she touched it. "Say it." Patch's voice broke the silence. "What the hell kind of joke?" A sound interrupted him. A long, low creak, like something brushing the window pane. Laura turned her head slowly. Behind the glass, nothing, only the dark street and the faint shape of their reflection. But Ruby noticed it first. Their reflections weren't matching. Her reflection's mouth was still moving, whispering something soundless. She took a step back. Mitch whispered, "We're done. We're locking up." Ruby forced herself to turn away from the window and slipped the photo into a folder. Her pulse thudded in her throat. The lamps flickered one more time, and on the corkboard behind her desk, pinned between deadlines and police reports, was a fresh Polaroid, one nobody remembered taking. It showed the newsroom. Empty. Except for 4 figures standing where they were now, and a 5th leaning over Ruby's shoulder, grinning. By morning, Terror Hollow had new whispers. They slipped through diner booths, grocery lines, and school hallways, about the girl at the drive-in, the Polaroid, and the word you weren't supposed to say. Creepy. 3 times. That was the rule. And rules have a way of daring people to break them. At the Chronicle, the team was running on caffeine and nerves. Half the newsroom buzzed with gossip, the other half avoided saying the name altogether. Patch slammed a stack of newspapers onto Ruby's desk. "We made the front page, Ruby. Congratulations, your nightmare's trending." Laura leaned on the partition wall, her hair tied up, dark circles under her eyes. 2 more disappearances overnight, sheriffs blaming a copycat killer. Ruby rubbed her temples. "What about the photos?" Mitch appeared from the dark room holding a fresh print. "You don't want to see this." He laid it on the table, another Polaroid, found on the sheriff's windshield this morning. Same grin. Same 2 wide eyes. And behind the monster's shoulder, barely visible through fog, was the Chronicle building. Patch exhaled shakily. "Okay, no, I'm done. That's us. That's literally us." Ruby stared at the image, her throat tight. "No one outside the department has that angle. That was taken last night." Laura's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. No text. Just a photo. The newsroom, empty again. Only this time, a single word was scrawled across the wall in red pixels like static. "Say it." The office lights flickered. A computer screen behind them glowed to life without being touched. Patch turned slowly. "Please tell me someone." The speakers crackled, letting out a faint hiss like breath. Then a voice, warped and smiling, whispered,
"Creepy. Creepy."
The third time was louder. All 4 screamed as the monitors exploded into static. Ruby hit the light switch. The room plunged into darkness except for the faint glow of one remaining monitor. On the screen was a live video feed. Their newsroom, same angle, same desks. Except now, the feed showed someone standing behind them, grinning. By noon the next day, every screen in Terror Hollow was glitching. Old televisions stuttered with static, radios played whispers between songs, and phone lines hissed with faint, wet laughter. The town felt like it was under glass, buzzing, echoing, waiting to crack. Inside the Chronicle, Ruby stared at the newsroom's TV as it flickered through local stations. The news anchor's voice warped mid-sentence.
"Authorities are still searching for creepy person of interest. Creepy if you see."
The feed cut out with a shriek of static. The screen showed only the words. "Don't look away." Patch yanked the plug from the wall. "Okay, no. Nope. We are not doing cursed TV today." Laura was scrolling through the Chronicle's social page. People are posting about it. Every channel's breaking up. Someone even streamed a distorted face on channel 13. It's the same grin. Ruby whispered, "It's spreading." Mitch stepped closer to the window. Outside, the street was nearly empty. A few people stood frozen in front of storefront TVs, transfixed. The air had that strange pressure before a thunderstorm, but heavier, like something massive was breathing beneath the pavement. "Phones are looping," Laura said. Voicemails replay the same phrase, "Say it." Patch paced, rubbing his temples. "We should leave town, write from somewhere else." Ruby shook her head. "It doesn't matter where we go if this thing can ride through a broadcast signal." The fluorescent lights above them buzzed louder. Then every computer in the office booted up on its own, screens flashing to the same black and white feed. The camera angle was familiar, a high shot of the newsroom. Only this time, the feed was live. Ruby watched herself on the screen. Then something tall moved behind her digital reflection, looming, grinning, its mouth splitting wider as the pixels bled. The speakers crackled.
Creepy, creepy, creepy.
The third echo came from inside the room. A shadow unfolded from the corner near the filing cabinets, stretching upward until its head scraped the ceiling tiles. Its lips peeled back like tearing paper, teeth glinting wet in the flicker of light. Laura screamed first. The lights burst. Ruby grabbed the Polaroid from her desk, its image now nothing but static gray, and held it like a talisman. "Back door! Go!" They ran through the maze of desks, the creature's limbs dragging across walls, leaving streaks that hissed like burning ink. The door slammed behind them, but the voice followed through every speaker in town, whispering through radios, televisions, even the ringing of telephones.
You said it. You brought me back.
By nightfall, Terror Hollow was almost gone. Not destroyed, emptied. Streetlights blinked out one by one. Radios went quiet mid-song. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The air tasted like metal and dust. From the second floor of the Chronicle building, Ruby looked out over the main street. Cars sat abandoned at odd angles, headlights still on. A single police siren wailed somewhere in the distance, then choked into silence. Patch was in the corner, muttering to himself as he rewound an old tape reel. "We record him," he said. "Trap his voice back inside the signal. It's got to work. It's gotta work." Laura slammed down a drawer. "And if it doesn't? We die listening to him laugh?" Mitch, leaning against the window, said quietly, "We are already listening." They all froze. The faintest sound was crawling through the air vents, a wet, dragging whisper that rose and fell like someone breathing through broken glass. Ruby turned the volume knob on the radio near her desk. The static wasn't random anymore. It was rhythmic, like words half swallowed.
You said it. Now you stay.
Her hands shook. "He's using the frequencies." "Then we jam them," Patch said. "We cut power to every transmitter in town." Mitch nodded grimly. "That means going to the broadcast tower." Laura exhaled sharply. "That's 5 miles through pitch black. The whole town's turning into one big dead zone." The lights flickered. All four looked up. Through the tall windows, something massive moved past the street, a shape too big to see all at once. Its head brushed the power lines, snapping them like string. The sparks rained down in blue-white arcs that lit its grin for a heartbeat before plunging the street back into blackness. Ruby's voice cracked. "He's not in the signal anymore. He is the signal." The building shuddered, and every phone on every desk began to ring at once. Not a normal ring, long, drawn-out tones that pulsed in sync with the lights. Laura clapped her hands over her ears. "Make it stop." Patch smashed one of the phones. It went silent until another started ringing. Ruby stared at the wall clock. The hands weren't moving. The second hand was ticking back and forth in place like it was stuck between two moments. "Time's stuttering," she whispered. Mitch grabbed his coat. "We go now, tower or nothing." They ran down the stairwell, their footsteps echoing too loud, like the building was deeper than before. On the landing, a faint hum came from behind a locked door marked archive. Ruby hesitated. "What's that?" Patch turned. "Leave it." But the hum grew louder, rising like a heartbeat. The door handle twisted from the inside. Laura screamed as it creaked open. Boxes toppled, dozens of Polaroids spilled across the stairs, all showing different moments: the drive-in, the newsroom, the town square, And in every one, Mr. Creepy stood somewhere in the frame, and the newest photo, still developing, showed the four of them standing right there on the stairs. Mitch didn't wait. He kicked the door shut, and they ran into the night. Outside, the entire town was dark, except for one flickering red light pulsing from the broadcast tower on the hill. It blinked like a heartbeat in the fog. Ruby whispered, "He's waiting for us." The fog thickened the higher they climbed up the hill. Every step squelched in mud, every exhale turned to mist that hung too long before fading. The red beacon of the Terror Hollow broadcast tower blinked above them like a warning pulse in the night. "Almost there," Mitch said, his voice rasping. "If we can jam the main feed, maybe it'll break whatever loop he's using." Patch hefted the portable transmitter, its static-laced hum cutting through the wind. "Yeah, great plan until the walking nightmare decides to use us as antennas." Ruby didn't answer. She couldn't shake the feeling that the tower was watching them. The air buzzed faintly, not thunder, not wind, but signal. It tingled on her skin, a vibration deep enough to make her teeth ache. Laura stumbled on a route. "How do we even know he'll be here?" Ruby looked back down the hill. The town was gone beneath the fog. No lights, no sound, just an ocean of gray. Because everything else already belongs to him. They reached the base of the tower. The metal frame loomed high into the clouds, humming with a low electric growl. A set of maintenance stairs wound upward like a spine. Patch connected the transmitter to the power box. "Once we overload the feed, it should crash the broadcast." He glanced at Ruby. "Or fry us all." 50-50. Mitch gave a grim nod. "Do it." The moment Patch flipped the switch, every radio in town screamed. Hundreds of overlapping voices, male, female, child, chanting the same word over and over.
Creepy.
Creepy.
Creepy. The ground trembled. The fog churned violently. From somewhere deep below, a shape began to rise, taller than the tower, dragging the town's power lines up with it like veins. Its grin appeared first, splitting the mist like a wound. Then came the rest, that grotesque, colossal face stretching upward, its jaw unhinging to reveal the glow of the red beacon inside its mouth. Laura screamed. "He's part of it. He is the tower." Ruby gripped the railing, shouting over the wind. "Finish the sequence!" Patch slammed the final key on the transmitter. The machine whined, static blaring so loud it made their vision flicker. The voice bled through the speakers. Deep, distorted, furious.
You called me back. Now you listen.
Mitch roared. "No more," and ripped the control lever down. A blinding pulse erupted from the tower, sending a shock wave through the fog. The air tore open. For a second, Ruby saw flashes of everything the legend had consumed. Faces frozen in Polaroids, streets swallowed by static, TV screens burning white, then silence. The red beacon died. The tower went dark. Ruby hit the ground hard. The air felt still again. Real, cold wind, no signal, hum. Laura coughed, half laughing, half crying. Did it work? Patch looked up. "I think we killed the feed." Mitch managed a weary grin. "Then let's get the hell out of..." A faint click cut through the quiet. Ruby froze. She knew that sound. A camera shutter. From the shadows near the base of the tower, something small fluttered onto the ground, a developing Polaroid. The picture ghosted into view slowly, shapes forming under the milky surface. Ruby's hand trembled as she picked it up. The image showed 4 figures standing under a dead tower. Their faces were blurred. Only the fifth was clear. Grinning. Epilogue. 3 days after the blackout, Terror Hollow's power returned. The town looked the same, but quieter. No one talked about what happened. Half the houses still had televisions turned toward blank screens, like people were waiting for something to come back. At 3:33 a.m., every channel flickered to life at once. No logos, no news anchors, just a single broadcast signal looping from Channel 8, a local station that hadn't existed in years. The feed showed the newsroom of the Chronicle, empty. Desks covered in dust, coffee mugs turned cold. A faint hum threaded through the static, soft at first, then louder. In the corner, a Polaroid camera sat on a chair. Its flash went off once, briefly lighting the room. The screen glitched, then the image shifted, just slightly. 4 figures appeared behind the desks, flickering, unmoving, and in front of them, a tall shadow bent down toward the lens, its grin stretching wider until it filled the frame.
Good evening, Terror Hollow.
A voice rasped through the static.
You're on the air.
The broadcast cut to black. No one ever found the signal again. But every Halloween since, televisions across nearby counties flicker at 3:33 a.m. for exactly 13 seconds. Long enough to hear the faintest whisper riding the static.
Say it.